rise, we'll pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Township of Albridge Zoning Board of Adjustment, regular meeting, December 1, 2022. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Albridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting by primarily posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, the date, the location, and the agenda of this meeting. Also by mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune, by filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk, and posting the notice of the meeting on the municipal website. Ms. C, could we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Sullivan.
Here.
Mr. Connor.
Here.
Mr. Stoner.
Here.
Ms. Chevalier. Here. Mr. Scogno is absent. Ms. Andrews.
Yes, here.
Ms. Testaverde is absent, and Mr. Psychowski is absent. Mr. Dasty.
Here.
Ms. Sawant.
Here.
Mr. Dargy.
Present.
Mr. Hart. And myself, Ms. C. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. C. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. As I mentioned off the record, I will now mention on the record that one of the two applications has been adjourned for this evening. That matter is number 7-2022Z. It's B&R Gas Incorporated. That location is on Englishtown Road. That matter has been adjourned, and we're going to place it for a control date on our next meeting, December 15th. So I don't think anybody here in the courtroom is interested in that matter tonight. But we will be on the agenda for 12:15. Also, this meeting is being televised live on YouTube and also on channel CITV 15 here in the township. If you're going to speak before the board this evening, I would ask, other than the witnesses themselves who will be seated at the table, we should have a second microphone, I would hope. We'll probably take that one down and put it on the table for the witnesses. If you're a member of the public and you're going to speak, you can see a microphone standing there just behind the table up here. Please speak directly into the microphone. It is a directional, and we do want to pick it up for the sound for both the TV and for YouTube. Moving ahead, we're only going to have one application. We have the other housekeeping issues of, we'll go first to the minutes. And as listed, board, there's only one we're going to ask for an adoption tonight. It's the minutes of September 15, 2022. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review them. Absent any commentary or suggestions for addition or deletions, I'd ask someone to move them for adoption.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second, Stoner.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Stoner.
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier.
Yes.
Ms. Andrews.
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes. Item 4 is discussion. It's the 2023 zoning board meeting schedule. I guess everyone has had a chance to take a look at that. Does anybody have a conflict with any of the dates? It's normal. It's the first and third Thursdays, as always, with only one meeting in, I believe, August and November, right? No, well, two, just one in November. Comments or questions? Someone want to move them for adoption for the year 2023?
Chevalier will move it.
Is there a second?
Connor, second.
Connor seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Stoner.
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier.
Yes.
Ms. Andrews.
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes, thank you, board members. Now we go to Mr. Dasty. We have resolutions. We have two of them. I'll announce the first, 37-2019Z, Vision Albridge 3 LLC for an amendment. Mr. Dasty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a second amended resolution. This application came before the board in 2019. It was adopted in 2020. There was a subsequent amended resolution in 2021 amending some typographical errors. This is another one that the board planning and zoning office caught. The application granted a floor area ratio variance of 1.0%, where 0.3% was required or permitted, and the adopting resolution from 2020 has 0.99% as the floor area ratio variance granted. This again just confirms the approval from 2020 that it was, in actuality, 1.0% was the floor area ratio that was granted. So this just amends a typographical error and incorporates by reference all of the other approvals and findings of fact from the public hearing that happened in 2019 and 2020.
Ms. Sawant?
Yes, board members, I just want you to note that the actual change is not because the building footprint has changed. What happened is, this is the application for Vision Old Bridge 3 on Old Madavan Road. I think the address is 105 Old Madavan Road. And as you may recall, the applicant had gone and shrunk or revised the design of the building. The FAR was changed, and it was 1.0. However, the memo did not identify it, and so the resolution did not identify it. When the zoning office and I started reviewing it for permits is when we caught the difference, and we just want to fix the resolution before the permits are issued.
Thank you, Ms. Sawant. Board members, having heard that, does someone want to move the new resolution, please, for adoption? Is there a second to Mr. Stoner? I will. Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. 83-2020Z, 2G Poor Farm, LLC, major preliminary and final site plan. Mr. Dasty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution that incorporates the approval from the June and July board hearings, whereas the applicant proposed or sought use variance relief under NJSA 40:55D-70D, where the applicant was, the property is Block 5000, Lot 20 along Poor Farm Road in Old Bridge Township. The applicant received approval for 35 dwelling units, 7 of which would be devoted for affordable housing. The memorializing resolution incorporates the findings of the board, the findings of fact, and conclusions of law, as well as conforms the variance relief sought. So that is the resolution that was previously voted on and adopted previously in the year.
Thank you, Mr. Dasty. Board members, you've heard the resolution. Someone move it for adoption, please.
Connor, I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Second, Stoner?
Chairman?
Ms. Andrews raised her hand. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just see a typographical error. The application number
Yes, ma'am.
should be 83-2020Z, I guess, right?
2020. Oh, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a 2 missing.
Yeah, no, 2020Z, correct, Natalie?
Correct.
Yeah,
20
I see a 202Z on the top.
As amended, I will insert that 0 that is missing. Thank you.
No problem.
Now we can vote on that now?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. All right, that takes care of our housekeeping issues. We have one application before the board. This is a continuation. This is number 52-2021Z, RD Management Corp. This is located block 16004, lot 53 in the ED03 zone. Frontage on Route 18 and Foxborough Drive, multifamily residential community. Major preliminary and final site plan with C and D variances. Kenneth Pape, Esquire, representing the applicant, sir. Did it go green?
There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, board professionals, and public. My name is Kenneth Pape. I'm with the firm of Heilbron and Pape, and I have the privilege and responsibility of representing the applicant this evening. This is, as read into the record, an application for use variance and preliminary and final site plan to construct 120 residential apartments on property that is at the intersection of Foxborough and Route 18. The hearing began on September 15th. And on September 15th, the board gave us adequate opportunity to present most of Mr. Michael Pucci's testimony. Mr. Pucci is the professional engineer responsible for the plans. the conclusion of his testimony, the board examined Mr. Pucci, gave comments to Mr. Pucci, and there were also comments from the public. Mr. Pucci revised his plans and made a resubmission. And this evening, I'm going to ask that he take a few moments, and literally only a few moments, to go through the physical revisions to the plans. There's one major revision to the plan, and the rest are more administrative. Before I begin with that presentation, this was a continued hearing without the requirement of renotice or republication. The Chair and Mr. Dasti made the announcement at the September meeting, so the jurisdiction was established for tonight. Just before Mr. Pucci begins his testimony, our clients came before the planning board a few years ago and asked to develop this property in a conforming manner. We asked to build a shopping center, convenience store, and a gas station, all of which were permitted uses. Two things happened of significance. Our residential neighbors came out and said, we don't like that, with a pretty strong voice, and the board turned us down. And we're in court and have been for some time with that matter. At the beginning of the hearing, I placed on the record, I think, a necessary statement, and I want to just repeat it. And that statement is, if this board finds it appropriate and is comfortable granting the relief that we're asking of it, that request for commercial development will be withdrawn from the court and will be dismissed with prejudice. Dismissed with prejudice means it's not coming back. When we were in front of the board, the planning board, with that application, there was a number of statements made against the application. Just would like to remind you that on this application, we had the great pleasure that William Miller, the attorney for the trustees of the association, did make a statement to the board. It's in the transcript at pages 57 and 58, that philosophically, the Board of Trustees supports this application. Big difference. Didn't want to lose that. Mr. Pucci was previously sworn. His credentials were placed on the record. He was accepted as an expert in his field of professional engineering. May I ask that I remind him that he's under oath and ask if he could continue testifying as a professional engineer.
Absolutely, he is still under oath, and we welcome his testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Pucci, I'm going to ask if you would first introduce the exhibit upon which you intend to rely, and ask, maybe Natalie can bring it up on the screen.
Okay, it would be the one labeled 04-BM.
Is that on?
The microphone is on, yes. Okay. So what is on the screen now is basically sheet 4 of the site plan set that I had revised. I believe the date is November 10th. And that revision, as Mr. Pape said, was done in response to the comments received at the September 15th hearing and in response to the memo authored by Mr. Dargy, Ms. Sawant, and others on the previous submittal. The one significant change that you will see is that on that prior application, the driveway that curves around here, there's a driveway in the front of the building and curves around parallel to the jug handle from northbound 18 onto Foxborough Drive. That driveway used to continue straight up and turn left onto Foxborough Drive. The driveway across the back of the building stopped and teed in to that vertical extension of the front and curved driveway at a stop condition. Mr. Dargy and his office opined that this would be a better alignment, and so we investigated the feasibility of it, found it doable, and therefore have realigned the back driveway to make it go across the back of the building and curve, and that to be the primary straight-through movement to that same ingress-egress driveway at Foxborough Drive. And now the driveway that comes across the front and curves up will be the stop condition teeing into the driveway, realigning to the left and right.
That's the main physical revision to these plans.
That is correct.
And I'm going to ask you to talk about some of the the detail revisions, but are the balance of the revisions technical and detail revisions?
Yes, I would say the lion's share of those remaining comments from that first letter are, in fact, technical, things that I can just work out with Mr. Dargy to his satisfaction.
I'm going to ask if you could, I think together we came up with a short list of 6 items. I'm going to ask that you take the board through, just put on the record that what you have done and what you've agreed to do.
Okay. At the prior hearing, and immediately prior to the prior hearing, we had the opportunity to work with your professionals and meet with them and understand the comments in that prior review letter. And I had a concern or question whether there was an applicability of a certain setback ordinance. The EDO 3 ordinance requires that setback from a parking area to the building be half the height of the building or a minimum of 15 feet. And we had in certain locations, such as right here or over in this point of the building, the setback was less than 10 feet. We weren't sure whether it applied because of the use variance nature of the application. Mr. Dargy and Ms. Sawant said it does. We absolutely concur and agree, and therefore there are a couple of locations where the setback from the parking line, that is the curb line at the head of the parking space, to the building at the points that I just illustrated is less than the 10 feet. Or sorry, less than 15. It is about 10 feet. It is not the 15 that is required.
And you called that out on the plan, and you placed those dimensions on the plan.
That is correct. There was a request in the review letter to do that, and those dimensions were added to the plan.
If you could take us through the other technical revisions that were made.
Okay. There is a pair of comments about the existing detention basin here, which happens to be formed by an existing gabion retaining wall at the east or southerly end of that basin. That wall has been in existence since the initial construction of this project many, many years ago, I believe in the 90s or thereabouts. There is also an outlet structure here that accepts flow from that existing detention basin and pipes it away. And the comment was to just verify the structural integrity, really, of those two elements, the existing retaining wall and outlet structure. And we agree that that is something we will take care of and submit that structural analysis by a structural engineer to be retained. That will be done prior to any construction on the basin. There is another one talking about the new detention basin. So in this area here, we've expanded the existing detention basin and have a couple of walls at the edge of the parking area and the drive aisle down into the basin, that drive aisle being for service vehicles to get in there. And there were comments about structural design of that wall, the perforations through the wall for the outlet pipes into it, and how they would be sealed. And those are the type of things that we will work out with Mr. Dargy. They will be done by the wall designer at the time of design of the wall, the site-specific details, the structural calculations, documenting stability, and so on. All of that will be submitted to him prior to construction as shop drawings for his review and approval.
I'm going to ask you a specific question. I know the next one that you're going to address is the Foxborough driveway intersection design. If you could take a moment to describe the way that driveway is currently designed and the vehicle movements that can be accommodated and the vehicle movements that have been made difficult or impossible.
Okay. If it's at the board's pleasure, I have 3 other exhibits. At the prior hearing, I had marked into evidence a colored version of this before revisions and what I called truck turning plans, fire truck, SU-30, and WB-50. I have those revised exhibits if you would like to step through those, and it might be a little clearer than to see all these dots all over those.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Witness and Mr. Pape, I was going to actually interject and say you did mark the original site plan and certain documents at the first hearing.
That was A3. I would suggest that we stopped at 6, so this should be A7.
Exactly. So if these are revised plans, let's get that on the record. This will be A7, last revised. I thought you said November 10th, and any additional, any updated documents, I think for everyone's benefit, you should mark them.
Sure. So what exhibit would you like Natalie to bring up next?
Any one of the turning plans, and I will just wing it and go with that.
I'm sorry, and just for the record, A7 is going to be the revised site plan.
That is correct.
November 10 of 2022.
Page 4.
Page 4, thank you.
That is correct. And thus, A8 will be
We'll see.
Okay, I honestly cannot read the bottom corner, so I don't know which one this is. Okay, so this being a WB50, we will mark this as A8, which is the newer version of what was A4 in the past.
It's last revised November 10.
That is correct. So this truck turning plan for a WB50 shows, as before, that a tractor trailer can get into the site and turn left and circum around the building and come back out. And what it does show in the upper right-hand corner, well, first, a tractor trailer that would come eastbound on Foxborough Drive, presumably coming southbound on 18, taking the jug handle at Marlborough Road, can then make the turn into the site. However, there is a blow up in the bottom of this sheet. And Natalie, if I could ask you to please move this up a little bit. What this shows right here is that that's a blow up of the intersection up high, that any tractor trailer that tried to make a turn to the right to get onto Foxborough Drive, and for whatever reason, if there is a tractor trailer in the site trying to turn into the Foxborough development, it could not do it. It physically cannot make it. The cab would actually drive over the median of Foxborough Drive, the existing median there today, and would therefore not be able to make that maneuver. The only thing that a tractor trailer could do, if it chose to exit at the back driveway, would be to turn left and go out to Route 18.
And that restriction was created by dimensions and geometry on the driveway?
That is correct. The outbound driveway has Mr. Dargy can comment as well and make sure that we did this right, but the little turn, the curb radius right there that I'm pointing at, where as you're driving out, there's a curb on your right, and it will curve onto the southerly curb line of Foxborough Drive. The larger the radius, the bigger the vehicle that can make that sort of a turn. So it was shrunk down to a 5-foot radius, a rather small radius. And therefore, that particular maneuver cannot occur because otherwise the truck would be driving over the lawn, over the median, over the sidewalk.
And we'd also, there's signage that's part of the site plan that's coincidental with that.
Please show the blow-up, highlight it on the regular plan itself, where
Sure.
that action is.
Sure. So,
Just have to bring it down a little, Natalie.
right, just if you could slide the picture down.
Get more down.
All the way down.
All the way down.
No.
I'm sorry, the other way.
Because it's-
Pull the
it's gotta be
picture down.
higher.
The other
A
down.
little further.
Yep.
Okay, so in the exit driveway, I described earlier that the driveway is realigned to exit out. The back driveway curves up and exits out. It's right in this location right here where the truck cannot make a right-hand turn onto the inbound lane or the eastbound lane of Foxborough Drive.
Thank you. I know the professionals here and know where you were speaking about. I wanted those that are not professional to know exactly where it is on the property. Thank you.
Thank you. We have to sometimes
Yep.
be untechnical and make sure it's very understandable.
Could we go to the next vehicle and you can describe the issues with the next vehicle?
Okay, so the truck turning SU, this will now become A-9,
Yes, sir.
and that is the newer version, or revised version of what was previously marked A-5. And as before, this just shows that your typical SU, which is a single unit truck, basic box truck like a FedEx or a UPS delivery vehicle, can certainly make any maneuver into and out of the driveway from 18 and can circle around the building safely without impeding any traffic spaces or anything. And that truck actually can make a right-hand turn onto Foxborough Drive or make the left-hand turn onto westbound Foxborough Drive to get to 18 and thus continue south on 18.
So it could, but for the fact that signage will be placed there that says that it's not permitted.
Correct. So if someone were delivering to this location here at the drop-off and then had further deliveries to residents of Foxborough, legally they would have to go out of the driveway and then come in on the Route 18 jug handle here to come into Foxborough Drive.
But our driveway would be marked as a restricted driveway.
Correct. Signage will prohibit trucks from making a right-hand turn.
What is, and if we look at the third exhibit,
Okay, so the third exhibit, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10?
10, sir.
Is now the revised version of what would previously have been submitted as A-6, truck turning plan, fire truck. And this has been revised to reflect the fire truck template that was requested of us by Mr. Hart. He did have a review memo for the prior meeting, and he asked that we change the previous ladder truck that we had used to a specific template he provided to us. And we did put that on here and show that that particular truck can make all of the maneuvers into and out of the site at both driveways and around the building.
Mr. Pucci, the review letter, the combined review letter that was provided by the board's professionals had quite a number of paragraphs. It looked to me as I was going through them over the last 2 days that about 65% of them have the comment addressed, satisfied. Are you comfortable advising this board and the board's professionals that you've read through the report and that the balance of the technical requirements that are in that report you can and will comply with to the satisfaction of the board's professionals?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair and board members, I have nothing further of Mr. Pucci. These were the embellishments, modifications to the plan that was presented in its entirety on September 15th.
Before I ask Mr. Dargy if he has any questions for my own knowledge and for the board members, are you indicating that each and every item that's listed in his report you can comply with?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that. Mr. Dargy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our report is dated November 28th. It's originally dated August 12th, most recently revised to November 28th. We have had several meetings with the applicant and their professionals to review our comments. The applicant has revised their plans to address the major comments that we had with regard to the alignment of the driveway and circulation around the site. There are a few outstanding comments, mostly detail-related comments that, again, we have had conversations with Mr. Pucci, and I'm satisfied that those comments can be satisfactorily addressed. So from an engineering standpoint, I don't have any questions for Mr. Pucci, but I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sawant?
I have no questions for Mr. Pucci.
Okay. Board members to my left? Any questions of Mr. Pucci? None? Rose? None? Mr. Hart? No, I don't have any questions. And Mr. Dargy?
Mr. Dasty.
Dasty, what I said, Dargy.
He's much better looking.
He's more handsome down there. None,
Similar
sir.
names.
None, sir. None, sir.
Very
Back to
good.
you, Mr. Pape.
Okay, thank you. All witnesses will remain, and it's our understanding that at the conclusion of the testimony, the public will have an opportunity to examine each and every one of the witnesses.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pucci, please don't leave us. The next witness is John Ray, who is our traffic engineer. I don't think that we put John's testimony, I don't think we started John's testimony on September 15th. We went right to the public after Mr. Pucci. And just so that everybody has the scorecard, the intention is for Mr. Ray to testify as the second witness, and for Mr. Jason Tronco, who is our landscape architect, as the third witness, and for Stuart Johnson, who is Jason Tronco, who is the landscape architect, is after Mr. Ray. Mr. Stuart Johnson, who is the architect, after Mr. Tronco. And the final witness, it's always the final witness, is the planner, Allison Coffin. We're all just here to set the stage for Allison.
Exactly. Just for those in the audience and the non-professionals, and if you're here on this matter this evening, so what Mr. Pape had indicated after Mr. Pucci stepped down, that he will be here for examination should we need it. And the protocol of the board is that we listen to all the witnesses' testimony. Our professionals may have questions, our board members may have questions. The public portion is at the end. So after all the witnesses testify, there is going to be a public portion this evening. So if you have any questions, you might want to write them down now or jot them down as the witnesses go. But we're not going to interrupt the testimony of each witness. We'll wait till the very end, okay? Just so you understand the protocol. I'm sorry, Mr. Pape, go ahead.
No, I appreciate that, thank you. Mr.
Mr. Ray, if you could raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm to testify the truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
And can we have your first name and spell your last, sir?
John Ray, R-E-A.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Ray has testified here before, but for the record, Mr. Ray, please share your credentials with the board.
Sure, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My field of specialty is traffic engineering. I have a total of 48 years' experience in the traffic engineering field, an undergraduate degree in civil engineering from NJIT, and a master's degree in transportation engineering from NYU. And I've been doing consulting work here in the state of New Jersey for the last 35 plus years, and I've been accepted by this board before as an expert in traffic engineering.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. And everybody on this board recognizes you, but I'm glad you did that for those that may be watching at home and those sitting in the audience for the first time meeting you. We obviously accept your expertise, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, John, I've got a couple of questions I'm going to ask you. We'll just go through some I'll call them bullet questions. Is that a good exhibit for you to have up? Is that adequate for you to be talking about parking and circulation?
It
in
is,
driveways?
yes.
Okay.
I don't know what number this is.
That exhibit's A10.
A10, okay.
It's the fire truck plan, but for purposes of parking, driveways, I think it has the information that's necessary.
Correct.
So the first is, you heard Mr. Pucci say that the circulation was adequate for all the anticipated vehicles. I'd like to hear your position, your professional, are all of the driveways designed so that all of the anticipated vehicles can maneuver the site safely?
Yes, I concur with Mr. Pucci's testimony. Again, just to reiterate what the access to the property will be, there will be, I can't believe this thing doesn't reach that far.
Somebody else had one.
Michael and Jacob.
Staples didn't have a good laser pointer that day. Access will be right here? Here we go. A right-in, right-out access from and to the northbound lanes of Route 18 and a full access driveway to Foxborough Drive. So the two access points will provide for adequate emergency vehicle access. I believe Mr. Hart has concurred with that. And it will provide for adequate access for the everyday needs of the community with respect to the residents, deliveries, things of that nature. Full circulation is provided around the building. A total of 231 parking spaces have been provided. 230 are required under the New Jersey Residential Site Improvement Standards, so we meet and slightly exceed the parking requirement. The parking, as you can see, around the building is well distributed, and the overall circulation pattern meets accepted traffic engineering principles, and we have adequate parking, adequate circulation, and certainly adequate access to and from the property.
The driveway access from Highway 18 requires DOT review and approval. In addition to the review and approval of the board's professionals, could you share with us the status of that review and approval at the state?
Yes, the NJDOT application has been deemed complete. It is still under review. However, we have had communication with the NJDOT. I fully expect the location and the design of the driveway to be approved. And I would only reiterate that the location and the design of the driveway has been prepared in conjunction with feedback we have received from township professionals. This is the proper location. It is at the south, towards the south end of the property, as far away from the signalized intersection as is possible. It lines up with the access aisle that runs to the back of the building. It's a proper location. I have every expectation the DOT will approve it based on our communication with the DOT, and I believe it meets the requirements that have been set forth by the township professionals in terms of where they want the access located.
Mr. Pucci described the driveway going out to Foxborough Drive. He indicated that the geometry and dimensions were such that it was impossible for a large articulated vehicle to make a right and go into the Foxborough community without actually going up onto the existing median. If you could just can share with the board your understanding of that design, and if you would join in Mr. Pucci's conclusion.
Yes, he is correct in his conclusion that if a large tractor trailer or WB-50 tried to make that right turn, they would either have to run over the curb or encroach on oncoming traffic in order to make that right turn. We do not want large trucks making that turn going back into the Foxborough Village community. Quite frankly, I don't see there being a need or a reason for those trucks to do that. We're talking about one residential community to another, and so I don't think there's going to be much of a need for anybody to do that. And quite frankly, since this is going to be a residential community, I don't see there being a large number of WB-50 tractor trailers being generated. These are going to be apartments. It is my expectation that when moving vans come in to move people into, I think most of the apartments are two-bedroom apartments. Most of the moving trucks that are going to be coming to the site are probably going to be the box trucks, the SU-30s that Mr. Pucci testified to, that the site has been designed for. So essentially, that covers that.
John, there's some inquiry on the part of the board's professionals, from both the traffic engineer and from the engineer for providing consulting services to this board. They point out that the traffic studies were done in 2021 and asked if you comment on their continued validity as we sit here today.
Yes, actually, since my firm has been involved with this project since 2016, when the original planning started to be done for the permitted commercial use, which was in front of the planning board, I think still is pending in front of the planning board, if I'm not mistaken. We started doing our traffic counts back in 2016. Since we've been involved in this project for almost 6 years now, I can tell the board that we have continued to collect traffic volume data at Route 18 and Foxborough Drive for the last 6 years. We've also reviewed the NJDOT's historical traffic volume data that they've had on Route 18 in the area, and I can tell the board that the highest traffic counts that we collected or looked at from DOT over the last 6 years were the counts that were used for the traffic impact analysis. They are pre-pandemic counts. They were higher than any of the counts that were collected in 2020, 2021. And so in order to prepare the traffic impact analysis, we used the highest traffic volume counts from the 5 sets of data that we've had over the last 6 years in order to make sure we did a very conservative or worst case analysis.
You're comfortable that you did that?
Absolutely. We've probably overestimated everything because we used those traffic counts, which were the highest over the last 6 years.
There's a request that you put testimony on the record before the board comparing the volume of traffic that could be generated by a permitted commercial operation and compare it to the traffic that would be generated by this residential community.
I will do that in 1 second because we did prepare the traffic impact analysis for the permitted commercial use, and I can tell you that the residential use will generate significantly lower traffic volumes, particularly peak hour traffic volumes, as compared to the permitted commercial use. For example, during the morning peak hour, the commercial use that was proposed would generate 136 peak hour traffic movements. The proposed residential project will generate 59 trips, so approximately half the traffic of the commercial use. The comparison in the afternoon peak hour is even a little bit more stark, if you will. The commercial project would generate 252 peak hour trips. The residential project, 72 peak hour trips. So we are essentially about 1/5 the traffic of the commercial use. And then finally, just to finish it off, the Saturday peak hour, the commercial project would generate approximately 350 peak hour trips. And again, the residential project would be about 75. So you can see what the differences are. It will be, if the board should elect to approve this use, it can do so without having an adverse and negative impact on traffic conditions because it will be a lower traffic generator than the permitted commercial use.
And I have one more technical question. This is raised in the staff report. Could you speak to the queuing of traffic on Route 18, the vehicles that stop at the controlled intersection? Is there any reason to be concerned that the queuing of vehicles would block our entry driveway on Route 18?
No, that will not happen, but I think actually one of the comments in Mr. Dargy's review letter that his traffic engineer was concerned about was the southbound traffic during the afternoon peak hour when residents are returning home. And as everybody knows, the predominant traffic pattern in the area is the commuter traffic goes north in the morning, returns from the north coming south during the afternoon. And the southbound jug handle is it's a little bit of a imperfect situation, if you will. However, I've looked at that situation. We are going to generate an additional 27 left turns off of the southbound jug handle during the afternoon peak hour. And just to give you some simple math that everybody, I think, can follow, which is very basic and really focuses the situation, I think, in a situation where you can accept and see what's happening. The traffic signal operates on a 120-second traffic signal cycle, Route 18 and Foxborough Drive. So really what that means is there are 30 cycles over the course of an hour, 30 complete traffic signal cycles. We are going to be generating approximately one left turn every traffic signal cycle. So essentially what that means is we're going to have a minimal impact on that operation, and it will continue to function safely and efficiently in my estimation. And I believe the DOT will find that conclusion is valid as well.
And I'm not sure that you completed the answer about queuing in any way impacting that driveway.
No, it will not. Looking at the queuing analysis, I wanted to get into the review letter a little bit more than I guess I didn't answer your question directly. The queue on I guess it would be the eastbound traffic flow on Foxborough Drive will not extend to the driveway for the residential project under either the morning or afternoon peak hour analysis.
My last question, Mr. Ray, is are you comfortable that this circulation system and parking system and ingress and egress system is in its totality safe and adequate for the purposes that we intend to develop the property?
I am very comfortable, and just to give the board another level of comfort or whatever, the existing residential building that's on Old Amboy Road, which is the road that runs parallel to Route 9, which is a residential project. We prepared the traffic study for that project as well. It was some time ago. The project is built out. It's pretty much fully occupied. I've been to that site to observe the circulation, the parking. Everything seems to be working out pretty well, and I expect the same for this project should it be approved.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing further of Mr. Ray, and he now is available to the board and the board's professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Pape. Mr. Dargy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Similar to Mr. Pucci's testimony, we did request all that testimony that Mr. Ray did provide for the record. We've had discussions with him about that as well. I don't have any questions with regard to his testimony. Just to add, as far as the comparative comparison that I was going to say Mr. Pape provided, but Mr. Ray provided, and he was actually even conservative with that comparison, because the numbers that he provided actually accounted for the pass-by trips for let's say for the previously proposed convenience store gas station. And if we're talking about actual intensity of use, people actually accessing the site, you would actually add those pass-by trips in there, because those are actually people accessing the site. So the actual number of trips are actually maybe 150 to 200, even higher for the allowed permitted use versus the apartment use. That's all I have as far as comment on the traffic portion. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Mr. Watt.
So the
I have no question.
The delta is greater.
Correct. The delta actually between what's permitted versus what the applicant's proposing is actually even greater as far as trips go.
Thank you.
And I thank Rakesh for that, because I was just looking at new trips, and he's absolutely correct. In terms of the driveway movements, it would be, the difference in traffic generation would be even greater between the commercial use and the residential use because of the pass-by traffic that would be using the commercial
Thanks.
products.
Thank you. Ms. Sawant?
I don't have any questions for Mr. Ray.
Mr. Hart, any concerns? No questions. Okay. Mr. Dasty?
None, sir.
I did that slowly.
None, sir.
Board members to my left? None? Ms. Andrews? No? I got one. What happens when the tractor trailer does come southbound, does go across, and goes up Foxborough Drive?
It can enter the project in that direction. It's just the intersection's been designed so that when the tractor trailer comes out, it cannot make that right turn to go back into Foxborough Village without either riding over the curb or encroaching on the opposing traffic. So that's what Mr. Pucci was talking about, just trying to eliminate the possibility of the large truck going back into Foxborough Village.
If I may, one of the things that I've just asked, right now, Foxborough Drive connects to Highway 18, and if someone wanted to drive a articulated tractor trailer on Foxborough Drive, there's no prohibition, weight limit or otherwise.
No, there is no prohibition. I mean, essentially, they could come out onto Route 18 North, use the ramp, and go back into Foxborough Village. I don't see any reason why anybody would want to do that, but there's no prohibition on that.
And there's nothing that we could do about that activity.
No, and the other thing I would point out is I've driven back into Foxborough Village. There really isn't any advantage for anybody to try to cut through Foxborough Village to get out to Ferry Road. It's a circuitous route. You have to go through multiple stop signs, and there's no direct route to get back out to Ferry Road. There's no advantage to doing that.
Our goal is not to prevent trucks from going into Foxborough. We can't. Our goal is to make it so they can't use our driveway for that purpose.
Correct,
Period.
correct.
And just to review, when you were speaking about the queuing in the morning on the property, where were you referring to, Mr. Ray? Referring to the southbound entrance and exit?
Referring to, I think, what Mr. Pape was asking me about the queuing on Foxborough Drive that's coming out to the signalized intersection, and whether that would back up to the location of our driveway, and quite frankly, it won't, and it won't even be close, because most of that traffic during the morning, as everybody knows, wants to go north on Route 18, so they're going to use the ramp, and the only traffic that will be coming out to the signal would be the cross traffic going across the Marlborough Road or turning left onto Route 18 South.
Thank you. Mr. Pape?
Next witness, Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Ray will remain with us as Mr. Pucci is. Our next witness is Jason Tronco of Minnewaska. No, you're not from Minnewaska. You're from Malillo, Bauer, and Carmen. Yes. Thank you. Malillo, if Mr. Tronco could be sworn, we'll place
Sir,
his
can you raise
credentials.
your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to testify truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
Can we have your name again, sir, for the record?
Jason Tronco, Malillo, Bauer, Carmen, Landscape Architecture.
Spell your last name, Jason?
Tronco.
Thank you.
And Mr. Tronco, please share with all of us your education and professional background.
Sure. Thank you. Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture from West Virginia University. A licensed landscape architect in the state of New Jersey since 2002. I am a professional planner by exam since 2008. I have testified before many planning and zoning boards in the state of New Jersey.
Step
I have-
Mr. Tronco's credentials.
Thank you.
for putting them
Thank
on the
you.
record.
Thank you so much. Mr. Tronco, I'm going to ask if you could just kind of give us a brief overview of a brief overview of your responsibilities and the plans that you were responsible to design, and then if you could identify to Natalie that plan that you'd like up on the board.
Sure. It'll be called Overall Landscape Plan Rendering.
It's going to be A11. Mr.
A11.
Mr. Tronco, can we get a last revised date, do you know?
Sure. These plans are the landscape submission plans for Foxborough Road, Old Bridge, Malillo Bower Carmen, dated November 2nd, 2021, last revised November 21st, 2022. This is essentially the landscape plan within the package, color rendered for presentation purposes.
With that exhibit before the board, I'm going to ask if you could take us through the design elements. Just, I think that's. just
Sure.
take us through the
Yeah,
design
sure.
elements.
The site has been planted with native adaptive species, which focus on ecology. They include pollinator species, species that provide habitat. Native plants include shade trees, evergreen trees, ornamental trees, evergreen and deciduous shrubs, ground cover, ornamental grasses. Seed mixes have been provided to act as vegetation for the detention basins, which line the parking areas. This satisfies the NJBMP practices. Seed mixes are good because they provide diverse community, they limit fertilizers, and they control indigenous species. Other aspects of the site, which I like to point out, the site has been planted to provide screening to the northern residential properties to the northeast. A buffer has been provided to Route 18 as been required by ordinance. The basin to the south has been planted with seed mixes and shade trees. All of the parking lot and drive aisles have been tree lined, and planting has been provided at the foundation of the building to anchor it to the landscape. In regard to the professional letters, these plans will be revised to address both the environmental resolutions letter dated November 12, 2022, revised November 28th, 22, and also the Township of Old Bridge Conservation Officer letter dated November 28th, 2022.
Gary Lavallo's letter.
Correct.
And I think I may misspeak, so you just made a misspeak. August 12, 2022, revised to November 28th. I think you put in November a little early.
Okay, thank you.
So those comments that appear in the staff reports that require supplements or modifications to the plant material, you've gone through those, you're familiar with them?
Yes.
Make the same type of comment that Mr. Pucci. You can and you will address the requirements of Mr. Dargy and Ms. Sawant?
Correct. We will revise them.
You could also indicate you've participated in the discussions with the professionals so that these are a complete understanding.
Complete understanding, definitely.
I think that it's worthwhile to quantify the materials that you're planting. The reason I think it's worthwhile is because there's so much.
Sure.
Let's talk about
So in regard to plant material proposed on site, we have 86 shade trees, 13 evergreen trees, 25 ornamental trees, and then 1,075 shrubs, and over 5,500 perennials, ground cover, and more herbaceous material. In addition to that, we have seed mixes for various purposes, stormwater, fescue mixes, and also turf lawn mixes.
Your plans also include the signage. If you could talk to the board about the identification signage?
Sure. The main project identification sign is located to the north of the main entry on Route 18. That sign has a sign panel that's 21 square feet, has a base to it, and also columns off the side, which are another 22 square feet. So the total square footage of that sign is 43 square feet. It's 4 foot high and 12 foot wide. It will be illuminated with ground-mounted lighting.
Is it in the landscaped areas?
Yes, it's fully landscaped.
It's a secondary sign.
A secondary sign is also located on Foxborough entrance. That sign is smaller. The sign panel is 11.5 square feet. The base is 18 square feet for a total of 30 square feet. It's 4 foot high and only 8 feet wide.
Similarly lighted from the ground up.
And it is also ground mounted lit.
Your plans include the lighting elements. If you can take us through the lighting plan.
Sure. A comprehensive plan has been provided for the lighting. All lights proposed on site are down-facing LED shoebox type lighting. They're dark sky compliant. That's for the parking areas and the entry drives. They're mounted at 18-foot height. For pedestrian areas, they're lower. They're 12.5 foot in height. They comply with the ordinance for the lowest foot candle value, 0.5, and it's not less than 1/6 of the average value. And then it also satisfies the average to min and the max to min ratios.
An important comment to place on the record is, are the light fixtures designed to make certain that there is no spillage from these lights onto the surrounding residential community?
Sure. The lights are full cutoff, and they're also dark sky compliant.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, board members, I have nothing further of Jason Trunco at this time, and he is available to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pape. Mr. Dargy.
Similar to the other two witnesses, we've had several conversations regarding the landscaping. We have a few minor comments which the applicant has agreed to comply to. I don't have any questions for the applicant's landscape architect.
Thank you. Ms. Sawant?
So I'm assuming the landscape comments 95 through 99 will be addressed, and you'll work with the township officials to clean up any pending items?
Yes, that is correct.
In terms of the signage, I don't believe a variance is required, Mr. Pape, correct?
We don't believe a variance is required. That's one of the advantages of being in a zone that's not residential, that the signs are permitted.
I don't believe I have any further questions.
Fire Marshal, I don't think you...
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes, I would like to talk to him.
I didn't think you were going to talk about landscape.
The only concern that I would have is if we could stay away from mulch around the foundation of the building. The concern is cigarettes coming off balconies. If we can use stone instead, it's a lot safer. Any protection that the architect's going to put in this building is not going to help the building from the outside. So that's just a request.
Sure. Understood. And when we design buildings like this, we do what we call a vegetation-free zone. That's usually 6 to 18 inches of stone adjacent to the building to keep vegetation and things like mulch away from the building.
That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Fire Marshal. Mr. Udasti?
I do not have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Board members to my left? None? Roseanne? And I have none for the witness as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Thank you very much. See if I can get this person's name and his company correct. Stuart Johnson is a principal of Minnewaska. He is a registered architect in the state of New Jersey. If he could be sworn, and he'll share with you his credentials before he testifies substantively.
Thank you, sir. Do you swear or affirm to testify the truth in this matter before the board?
Yes, I do.
Can we have your name again, sir, for the record?
Sure. Stuart Johnson, last name Johnsson.
Thank you.
And just briefly regarding my credentials, I'm a principal at Minnewaska Architects and Planners. We're a 95-person architectural firm with offices in Lambertville, New Jersey, as well as Newark, New Jersey. I am a registered architect with a current New Jersey's license. I have a bachelor's in architecture from Syracuse University. I have appeared before and qualified as an expert in architecture in over 25 municipalities across the state, as well as the Superior Court in Brigham County.
Thank you, sir, for putting that on the record, particularly for those who would be watching from home. We appreciate that, and we accept your credentials, sir.
Sure, thank you.
If you could make an opening statement to the board and let them know what your responsibilities are on this team working for our client.
Sure.
And then if you could let Natalie know the exhibits that you'll rely upon for your testimony.
I'm actually going to begin with the exhibit that was on screen there. But again, I'm a principal at Minnewaska Architects and Planners, and my department and I oversaw the development of the architectural drawings that are associated with the application being considered before the board this evening. We were engaged as the architect of record for this project, and we're pleased to be here this evening to better describe it.
If you could give a description of the building design.
Sure.
And it would not be inappropriate to point out that there's a sister community by the same developer that's over on Route 9, so that they can have a visual of what your project would look like.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And that's a great comment. So let me begin with the applicant did develop and currently is leased here in town a sister building, which is a 3-story rental apartment building branded as 99 Bridge on Old Amboy Road. Very close to this project, a successful project that provides for new housing stock here within the community. The architectural application being considered here as part of the site plan application is substantially similar to that in regards to the building footprint, the design of the surface parking, designed to surround the building with convenient access, as well as the exterior architectural design, the interior finishes, as well as the interior and exterior amenities being provided for the community. So we have some theme imagery of that building, as well as the proposed building plans and elevations to share with you for this building being considered. So with that, I'm going to begin with the exhibit that is currently up on screen. I'll describe it as the rendered landscape architectural site plan. It's a color rendered site plan of the proposed project. So as we know, the project has frontage to the south on Route 18, has frontage on the west on Foxborough Drive. It has great access to transit to the local roadways for both employment as well as entertainment. It's an ideal site for a new multifamily inclusionary housing community. The application being considered before you is for a new 3-story rental apartment building. So the rental apartment units, it is comprised of a total of 120 rental apartment units, which is inclusive of 18 affordable units. Those 18 affordable units will be designed to comply with the UHAC requirements, as well as COA and the Fair Share Housing requirements, or the Fair Housing Act, specifically the unit mix breakdown, which I'll speak to in a minute, as well as the required thresholds of the percentage of very low and moderate income units. Inclusionary means that the units are designed, they're spread throughout the building, they occur on each floor. Walking around the interior of the building or driving around the exterior of the building, you would not be able to tell the difference between the market rate versus the affordable units. Side-by-side entries internal to the building, same access, same front door, same parking, same access to the same residential amenities for the new community. So if I can point you towards the exhibit on screen, the building is what we call a double-loaded corridor design, meaning we have units on both sides. It's a modified E-shaped building with the primary entry here on the south, facing Route 18. I believe it was previously described that the primary residential entry with a pull-off and drop-off area is located right in front of that residential entry, which provides convenient access for Uber or Lyft type drop-off, as well as the type of deliveries that we see with the multifamily building, being FedEx or Fresh Direct or mail and those type of things. Convenient access immediately into the lobby of the building, where we have the mailboxes and an oversized package room to handle that. Again, as shown here, we have ample surface parking that is located around the building. We have secure key fob access points through the stair towers around the building, which allows residents to access that building securely. And I believe the landscape architect and the civil engineer noted that it's a well-lit site that complies with the lighting levels for the site. So with that, we can advance then to the architectural slides, which is the next PDF. And I'll spend a few minutes just to walk through the operations of the building and how the building plan was laid out, and speak briefly about the exterior architecture for the proposed building. Most of the exhibits here in this PDF deck match that which you have before you or which was submitted to the town. We do have some additional theme imagery which we can mark individually as exhibits as we go. Where's the preference? Are we marking each sheet?
As you go, as you need them.
Okay. The first sheet here is the cover sheet of the architectural document. We can skip this and advance to the next document or the
These
next.
are your submission materials.
These are the submission materials.
No embellishments.
That's correct.
Don't have to be marked as exhibits,
Correct.
Mr. Des? Thank you.
We can advance to the next slide. So this is the ground floor of the building. So as noted, the primary residential lobby is located here with storefront windows and a secure key fob access through the entry vestibule. On the site plan, we saw the drop-off area that was here, again, which would be used for the operations that I described. Immediately upon entering into that building, we have the interior residential amenity space consisting of a club room and co-working type lounge spaces directly accessed off that residential lobby, as well as a state-of-the-art fitness center. Some of those spaces are double height to provide a nice light and air, again, very similar to the 99 Bridge sister community. And they also provide direct access here out to the active and passive recreation for the community. You saw on the rendered site plan, we are providing for a small resort-style pool with a chaise lounge seating area that has a fence around it and would have a lifeguard on duty when it was open, as well as outdoor opportunities for dining and seating for residents of this new residential community. There's also a more passive open-air courtyard here to the east in the other open-air courtyard. So as noted, it's a 3-story residential apartment units. The apartment units generally stack for construction efficiency. We have 120 total residential apartment units, which are comprised of 53 one-bedroom units, 63 two-bedroom units, and 4 3-bedroom apartment units. The 3-bedroom apartment units are all affordable units. I had noted previously that 18 of the 120 units are affordable units, which is 15% of the total units being provided. The affordable unit breakdown is 3 one-bedroom units. There are 11 two-bedroom affordable units and 4 3-bedroom affordable units, which again complies with the maximum 20% one-bedroom units, the minimum 3-bedroom, or the minimum 20% 3-bedroom units, and the remainder being 2-bedroom units. And they, again, would comply with the requisite number of very low, low, and moderate income units.
Just that distribution, I think the board may be familiar, the distribution of 3, 2, and 1 is by administrative code. That's the UHAC. Yeah, so we made it part of the record, but we have no control over what that distribution would be. Right. Thank you.
And again, those units occur on each floor in the building. It's an inclusionary design, so side-by-side entry, smart planning and smart design that complies with state requirements. So we had noted about some of the residential amenities on the ground floor. We've also post-shaded the plan here. The darker gray areas represent sort of the back of house and where we have mechanical type spaces on the ground floor of the building. I will note that this building, as proposed, currently plans for 2 trash chutes in the building. So internal to the building, residents would have access to an internal trash room on each floor of the building where we would have a trash and recycling chute that terminated on the ground floor, where we have trash compactors and 2 cubic yard rolling containers internal to the building. Typically, trash and recycling would be stored internal to the building. It would be picked up by a private hauler 2 to 3 days a week. Hours of operation compliant with township ordinance. There's also, as testified to and shown in the site plan, there's also a exterior trash enclosure on site for larger bulk items like larger cardboard boxes or items like that, which building porter or building management would wheel with on-site vehicles or devices to that location. The building will also comply with the International Building Code. When When this is filed, this will comply with the 2021 version of the International Building Code, which has been adopted by New Jersey. It will be a fully sprinklered building that will comply with the building code and have all the requisite life safety requirements. If we advance the slide, we have a few theme images here, and I do believe these are new exhibits that we did not submit, but we submitted to the board previously digitally. We can mark this as a new exhibit.
Sure. If
be,
this would be A13.
A12.
A12.
And Mr. Johnson, why don't you just describe what that document is?
So I'd be happy to. So Exhibit A12, we have theme imagery of the interior amenities for the building. These are actually marketing photographs that were taken from the sister project, 99 Bridge. So on the left is some of the open co-working lounge areas or spaces on the ground floor of the building directly accessed off of the residential lobby. And the area on the right is an example of the club amenity room, which is a double height space with access facing the open air courtyard to the south for great daytime lighting. Indoor gaming opportunities within that space and a place for residents of the community to be able to congregate. If we advance to the next slide, I do believe we have another theme image. This will be Exhibit A13. This represents, these are photographs again from the sister community, comparable amenities in terms of level of finish, the size of the space, and the open air courtyards, but this is from 99 Bridge. Drawing number 1 here represents the outdoor dining and seating opportunities within the open air courtyard, some of the passive recreational amenities. Drawing number 2 is a photograph of the resort-style pool there with a zero entry shelf and some chaise lounge seating and trellis space for shading. We advance to the next slide. This will be Exhibit A14, and this is theme imagery representing the quality of the interior finish of the residential units. So all the units typically have minimum 9-foot ceilings, large windows there with 3 pieces of glass in a living room and 2 pieces of glass in a bedroom, allowing for adequate light and air, and open layout plans. Again, highly marketable, and we're pleased to be able to offer same and comparable finishes and layouts for this new community. We can advance to the next slide. So this will be Exhibit A15, and this is a theme image for the exterior architecture. So this is a photograph taken of the front entry, the primary entrance to 99 Bridge, the sister community. The architectural style and the detailing and the exterior building materials as shown in this image represent that, a built version of that which is being proposed for the project being considered this evening. So the exterior building materials we can see here is a masonry brick veneer being used on the base of the building, sometimes going 2 and 3 stories for accent. We see horizontal siding as well as vertical fiber cement siding being used on the upper portions of the buildings, vinyl windows for the residential apartment units, new storefront exterior window and door systems at the residential lobby area, where we have residential lobby and amenity space at the ground floor lobby, as well as on the courtyard space where we have the club room and the fitness center, an architectural slung canopy here, which is composite of aluminum, providing protection from the elements at the main entrance. There's one building mounted sign atop that canopy. Those are raised dimensional letters that would be LED halo backlit, identifying the branding and the name or the address of the community. The building as designed has a mono truss roof, which gives it the look of a mansard roof. It's not a mansard roof technically, but it's a half roof truss or a mono roof truss, which gives the look of a pitched roof building, which fits the character of the architectural style of residential housing stock within the community. It's a nice look. It also smartly screens any mechanical units located on that roof. So any mechanical condensing units or rooftop units for heating and cooling the apartments and the common spaces would also be screened from view from the public right away, which is a smart design. So if we advance the slide then to the next page, these are the exterior building elevations, and perhaps we can zoom in on the drawing number 4 there. The top image on the screen, drawing number 4.
This is A16, are we marking this, or was
Well,
this
this is
previously submitted?
A7, but this was submitted as part of your document, so I don't believe we need to mark it as a new
Correct. I
exhibit.
just want to clarify. Thank you.
The title block is A7. It's from the plan set that you submitted to.
That's correct.
As part, very fine.
Yeah, and I do believe that this is called exterior building elevations. We have a material legend on here with call-outs for the building materials that I just described. These are color rendered building elevations, and I think that you would see that, again, these are substantially similar to that theme image that was just shared. The primary entrance to the building is located here on the south-facing elevation. I'm sorry, the north-facing elevation, where we saw the drop-off in plan. The back-of-house spaces where we have refuse and the electrical switchgear room and the domestic fire service sprinkler room are located over here as shown on plan. So again, as shown here, you can see the masonry brick veneer being used on the base of the building, sometimes dipping up a little bit taller for accent, but creating a weighted base on the building. We designed the building to be broken up both horizontally and vertically for architectural relief, and providing architectural relief and interest at the roof line of the building. So you'll see a varied roof line of the building with some turn gable detailing and accents, again, substantially similar to the sister community that was previously described and that is here within the town. So with that really concludes my architectural testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have, and certainly will be here this evening for any questions that the public has. I guess lastly, I'll just note as we see the building is 3 stories, and in terms of building height, it measures approximately 45 feet from the average finished grade around the building to the highest point of the roof structure, which complies with the zoning, which allows for 48 feet in overall building height.
Thank you. Again, nothing further of this witness, and the witness is available to you, Mr. Chairman, board members, and professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Pape. Mr. Dargy?
I don't have any questions for the applicant's architect.
I mean,
So what?
I don't have any questions per se, but what I'm just wondering, when I see the long expanse of the building, right? It's like having this huge mass. I would have preferred it to have broken up, and I get it. It's not one single facade that is that long. There is indentation and there is recess, and I get it, but if I'm on the other side where single-family homes are, to me, it's a long mass that is blocking 18. And it's just a thought when I looked at the elevations. The one thing I would say is, should the board act favorably during compliance stage, I would want to work with you on the building materials, because in the last few years, I know 99 Bridge was way before I came in, but we have been working with all architects to pick the building materials, trying to mimic something similar to Avalon Bay with the newer building materials to improve the quality. 99 Bridge was not a standard. We have said we want to keep improving, make it better. So I would definitely want to see the samples and work with you to finalize the look of it, if that's acceptable.
It is. It is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fire Marshal?
Sure. Have you had a chance to look at my review letter?
I have had a chance to look.
Now, I know, talking about 99 Bridge, a lot of the things that I asked for in this, they gave me at 99 Bridge. Do you agree on giving me what I asked for in my review letter?
There's only one answer, just so you know.
Well, talking about the standpipes and the stair towers, because you're under a certain height,
Right.
technically you don't have to put them in there.
Right.
But usually you folks are running the sprinkle pipes through the stair tower. And at 99 Bridge, they gave us the valves, because the building is big.
So that's a great recommendation, and yes, the applicant will, not technically required to because it's 3 stories, but will provide standpipes in those egress stairs, which allow for first responders to connect fire hoses, and
Correct.
in an elevator-served apartment building, that's how you attack a fire. So
Correct. The stair towers also having exit doors that we can get in. I heard you say that fobs on Knox boxes will be like 99 Bridge has like 7 of them.
So we'll work with you.
Okay.
And typically, yes, there would be a knock box that would have a knock box is a device on the building
Right.
that the fire chief and all first responders, there's probably a master key in each of the fire trucks, as well as the police department would have access to, and it would have skeleton keys essentially for all the doors of the building. And
Correct.
if you prefer to have multiple locations, multiple knock
Well,
boxes.
I would rather have them at every door entry of stair towers, and of course, one at the front, main entrance, which is what we have at 99 Bridge.
Yeah, so we could certainly work with your department on the location.
Okay, yeah.
That's fine.
The other concern was the grills and the fire pits outside.
Yes.
In the UCC code, you don't have to put emergency shut-offs. They have to be at the appliance. Well, if the appliance on fire, it's not very good for us to put our hand in it. So at 99 Bridge, they did locate emergency buttons on the building.
So that's typical. We will comply with that.
Okay. The only thing, the FDC, I'm assuming you're going to put it in that front where the riser room is.
That's
I
typically-
can only guess. Well, only because 99 Bridge was at one end of the building, and it ended up, I made them move it to the other end of the building. So I don't want you to do it in the middle of the building as they're structured going up, but I was assuming that's where you were going to put it. Because you have that loading area, you won't lose parking spaces.
That's a great recommendation. Again, we're happy to work with your department.
Well, unfortunately, after this, and if you get approved,
There's no technical.
I don't get the architecturals anymore, so.
We're happy to sit with you prior to
Okay.
building permit to review that.
So with that, the only thing would be that extra hydrant I would have to have in that area. The other ones are fine where they are, but where that fire department connection is, I'll need one on one of those islands across the parking lot.
Mr. Pucci will work with you to place the hydrant where you want the hydrant.
And the only other quick thing is I'm assuming the elevator will be large enough for an ambulance stretcher to be able to fit in?
It will be, yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have, Jim.
Thank you, Fire Marshal. Mr. Dasty?
I don't have anything, sir.
Okay. Members to my left? None? Roseanne? Back to you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there is one final
Would you, and I was going to ask, would you like to give a 10-minute recess for her to relax her hands?
I wanted to be the hero,
Go ahead, you always are. I read your mind. I knew you were going to do that anyway.
like he said. Yeah. Yes. we'd
And then
like to-
you'll have your final witness, okay,
Yes, sir.
correct,
Yes,
for the
sir.
evening?
You got
All right, for those watching at home, those here in the audience, we're going to take a 10-minute recess, no longer, please. It's 6 minutes of, so I guess that would be 4 minutes after. All right, we stand in recess. We're back from recess. This is the Township of Auburn Zoning Board. When last we broke, we were listening to application number 52-2021 ZRD Management. This is located at Route 18 and Foxborough Drive. We'll have a roll call, please, to make sure we're all present.
Chairman Sullivan,
Here.
Mr. Connor,
Here.
Mr. Stoner,
Yeah.
Ms. Chevalier,
Here.
Ms. Andrews,
Here.
Mr. Dasty,
Here.
Ms. Sawant,
Here.
Mr. Dargy,
Present.
Mr. Hart,
Here.
and myself, Ms. C. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. C. I'm sorry my microphone was off for those watching us at home. We'll return to the same application, 52-2021Z. Mr. Pape.
Yes, Mr. Chair, board members, the final professional witness to testify this evening is our professional planner, Allison Coffin. This has a D1 requirement. D1 requirement requires the testimony of a professional planner, and it's for the, and there are C variances also associated with it that also require the planner's testimony. If we could have Ms. Coffin sworn, and share her credentials and go right to her substantive presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Coughlin. Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear affirm to testify the truth in this matter before the board?
Yes, I do.
Can we have your name again for the record, and please spell your last name?
Allison Coffin, Coffin.
Thank you.
Ms. Coffin, please share with the board and the public your education and professional qualifications.
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree from Boston College. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I'm certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've had my license and certification since 2005. In that time, I've appeared as an expert witness in front of boards in more than 100 communities throughout the state, and probably more than 100 times in front of this board.
Thank you, Ms. Coffin, and we obviously recognize your expertise, and we recognize you. We thank you for being here this evening, and for those at home, obviously we do acknowledge your expertise this evening.
Allison, I'm going to ask if you could share with the board what you did to be prepared this evening. What do you do in the way of an investigation?
I looked at the application materials. I visited the site. I read the professional review letters. I met with the applicant and the board's professionals. I looked at the master plan and the zoning ordinance and some of the reexamination reports.
And if you could, with that as the foundation, if you could indicate to the board what your findings are. Take us through the facts that you find to be the necessary building blocks, and take us through the proofs that we have an obligation to address.
Sure. The site that we're looking at is a 9.3 acre lot. It's got frontage on Route 18 and Foxborough Drive. The property is currently vacant. It has a bit of a detention basin and some sanitary and storm sewer facilities on the site, and those are going to be removed as part of this application. The applicant proposes to develop this site with a rental apartment building that has 120 units in it. It's an inclusionary building. The site is supported by parking, and the applicant is proposing new sanitary and stormwater sewers, landscaping, lighting, stormwater management facilities, signage, as well as recreational amenities, both indoor and outdoor, for the residents. The property is located in the EDO 3 zone. The purpose of the zone is to permit a mix of office, retail, and light industrial uses to allow the township to attain the goals of accommodating market forces, increasing the local rateable base, expanding the local regional jobs base, providing a more diverse mix of goods and services to residents and businesses within the municipality and region, and utilizing suitable land for development in a more efficient, functional, and aesthetic manner while controlling and managing highway access and traffic congestion, minimizing impact on adjacent and nearby residential development, and protecting environmental sensitive areas. Now, the majority of the permitted uses in this zone are commercial uses with some light industrial and warehousing uses. But so a D1 variance is required for the proposed apartments, as multifamily residential is not a permitted use in this zone. There's some bulk variance relief being requested. The maximum front yard setback permitted on the highway is 75 feet, and the building is set at 108 feet, so it's a little further than the maximum, and 50 feet for other roadways, and it's 121 feet from Foxborough Drive. There may be some landscape buffer variances required relative to the makeup of the landscaping, but the applicant's intention is to work with the board's professionals to meet those requirements. There's also a variance required for the setback between the building face and parking spaces where 15 feet is required. And there's a couple locations where it's less than 15 feet at some of the corners of the building. And there's a 125-foot landscape buffer required along major arterial frontages, and there's 35 feet in this case provided to parking along the Route 18 frontage. And this was done so that the applicant could provide a greater depth of buffering to the rear of the site adjacent to the residential community where it was felt that that would have a greater impact. It's my opinion that special reasons exist for the granting of the use variance and the other variances requested by the applicant, and that the site is particularly suited to the proposed uses, and there is no significant detriment to the zone plan or the surrounding residential properties that would result from the granting of these variances. Special reasons exist for the granting of the D variance, in that this site is particularly suited to the proposed use. This site is situated along a state highway where it is intersected by the main thoroughfare accessing an established residential community. The development of this lot with a multifamily residential use as proposed will have a lower traffic impact on the residential neighborhood. This site is on a state highway with close access to another state highway, and this allows for easy commuter travel, making it well suited to a higher density multifamily residential apartment building, as does its proximity to employment centers such as the hospital. The site is not well suited to development with permitted commercial uses, although it is possible, as is evidenced by the recent intent to develop the site with conditionally permitted gasoline station, convenience store, and other retail uses. Though the site certainly could accommodate this use well, and as well as some of the other permitted uses, the impact on the adjacent quiet neighborhood from a permitted use is less desirable than the impact of the development of this lot as proposed with a quiet residential use. As we heard from the traffic expert, the traffic generated by this use is easily half that of or less than a permitted use would be. Now, the density that the applicant's proposing of 12.9 dwelling units per acre is consistent with what the ordinance anticipates for multifamily uses on this size lot. There is one of the inclusionary housing zones, the IH2. It allows an inclusionary multifamily housing use on a minimum 6.5 acre lot, and it has a maximum gross residential density permitted of 22.4 dwelling units per acre. This zone is actually located in close proximity to the site on Old Amboy Road on the eastern side of the Foxborough development. You may have heard of it. It is called 99 Bridge. There's also an AF apartment family residential zone and an AR apartment retirement residential zone. Both are permitted at a gross residential density of 14 dwelling units per acre on a minimum 6 acre lots. So the density that's proposed is consistent for what the ordinance would anticipate for multifamily apartment housing. There's also proposed bulk variances, which can be granted without detriment. There is a conflict in the ordinance here with regard to the maximum front yard setback and the buffering that's required along 18. The maximum front yard setback permitted is 75 feet, where 125 feet of buffering is required. It is not possible to meet both of these standards, so the applicant has provided a suitable setback that is a compromise between those two requirements. With regard to those maximum front yards, this standard is intended to control commercial uses permitted in the ED03 zone, not the proposed multifamily use, which will benefit from a greater setback from the roadway than the 75 feet permitted. This relief can therefore be subsumed within the requested D1 use variance. The setback between the building face and parking, where 15 feet is required, less than that is proposed at some of the building corners. It's a minimum impact. It's not the majority of the parking. And in all locations on this site, there is safe and adequate access around the building, despite some of the parking being less than 15 feet. And that 125-foot landscape buffer along a major arterial frontage, where we have 35 feet provided to the parking setback, this was done to provide a greater depth of buffering to the rear, adjacent to the adjacent residential community, where the applicant has provided a 100-foot setback between the parking lot and the lines shared with residences. Providing the greater buffering to the residences in the rear is a better planning solution than providing that buffering to the highway. The last test for a variance is whether or not it would substantially impair your intent and purpose of your master plan and development ordinance. While this use is not specifically consistent with the master plan and zoning for this lot, hence the request for the use variance proposal, I do think it does meet the purpose of the zone, which included utilizing suitable land for development in a more efficient, functional, and aesthetic manner while controlling and managing highway access and traffic congestion, minimizing impacts on adjacent nearby residential developments, and protecting environmentally sensitive areas. This application absolutely achieves that purpose. The 2020 amended reexamination report notes that the zoning for Route 18 was developed 20 years ago, and it should be noted that at that time, it was 1998, the area along Route 18 that was studied for that rezoning did not include this site. It was just from Ferry Road on. So the 2020 master plan reexamination notes, since that time, retail habits have changed, and more specifically, online retail has continued to grow and appears to be increasing without cessation. And further, the planning for these highway corridors must be updated to ensure that they remain competitive and a benefit to Old Bridge Township. Furthermore, since 2020, we have seen the longer-term impacts of the pandemic. This event has further changed shopping habits. It's also changed living and working habits. Work from home employment has grown, and the need for office space is reducing. So these factors combine to limit the market demand for the uses permitted in the EDO3 zone on this property. The proposed multifamily apartments with an affordable component are properly located on this site, adjacent to the existing residential community and sharing their access drive. This shared access is a unique site for Route 18, and the development as proposed for this one property would not impair the intent and purpose of the larger zone. The last thing I want to address is the community impact study. The board's planner did have questions about the community impact statement, which I did not prepare, but I discussed the study with the planner that did prepare it, and we reviewed his methods for determining population and school children. The multipliers that they used were from the 2018 revision to Listikins Who Lives in New Jersey Housing. It's the document that most planners use for this type of projection. The market rate units were calculated using his 50-plus apartment community above medium value rental units, and the affordable units were calculated using the section estimating multipliers for affordable units. There were some mathematical errors, nonetheless, in the CIS. The revised population estimate is 243, and the school-age children is 18, with the majority of those living in the affordable units. The increase in school population still remains negligible at 0.21% of the current school enrollment.
That's it. Usually I say I have no questions for you, but I have two questions for you. I think that it's worth repeating that we have the green area in the front of the property isn't deficient, it's too wide.
Yes.
It's an unusual condition.
Yes.
It's too wide.
Yes.
It's too much green area.
Too much setback.
And that the balancing test that you went through of how the green area was apportioned, the goal was to accumulate as much green area in the rear of the property so that we have the maximum buffer opportunity across the rear of the property.
Yes.
And you took us through the density. I thought that there was some very important points in there. You identified other zones in the township of Old Bridge where multifamily housing is permitted, and used the densities that were permitted in those zones to evidence that the density that we're proposing is something that the town has embraced in town, albeit on other properties.
Yes.
So one of those densities was in excess of 22 units per acre.
Yes.
And the other was 14 units per acre.
That's correct.
Just so that we put all three numbers together, and ours is 12.9 per acre. So the purposes of pointing that out was to demonstrate that the multifamily density that we're proposing is less than multifamily density that the township has allowed or even endorses in other zones.
Yes, it's not an excessive amount of density for this size lot.
I have no further questions of Ms. Coffin, and she is available to you.
Thank you, Ms. Coffin. Mr. Dargy?
I don't have any questions for the applicant's planner, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I do have some questions, some comments. So firstly, I know the first section variance of my memo, there were a lot of questions asked and a lot of proofs, especially because you are requesting a use variance, right? So within the EDO3 zone in the township, which primarily lies along Route 9 and Route 18, are there any residential apartment type of uses? Has the board granted any use variance for multifamily apartments on Route 9 or 18?
I don't have knowledge of that.
There are none, board members. I know we have been referencing 99 Bridge a couple of times during the course of hearing, but I just want to remind the board, the higher densities, the 14s, the 22 point something, all of them were part of a settlement agreement. They were inclusionary housing. When the township settled, Old Bridge was one of the first towns to settle in with their housing element fair share plan. There was an agreement between Fair Share Housing Center and the developers, Foxborough, Alferry, and Avalon Bay were one of the interveners. There were two participants at that time, which is Brunetti, and there was one more, I forget. But the higher densities were part of the settlement agreement and not as part of zoning board approvals or not newer zones that were created by the council. Also, one thing to keep in mind is 99 Bridge does not directly abut Route 9 and Route 18. I know Ms. Coffin mentioned the 2020 master plan recommendations, and I feel it's a little out of context only because ever since I have joined Old Bridge, we have amended the EDO ordinance multiple times, and that's only because the retail industry is always evolving. We come across the zoning office, the planning office always comes across newer uses which we never even thought of in the past. So we are constantly updating EDO zone to make those uses allowable. Also, there were comments about revisiting the non-residential uses in context of offices, because we all know that offices are dying because of remote working and telecommunication. So there was a recommendation that most of the OG zone lies along Route 9 and 18, and the township should take a look at it. In the last 5 years, we did, no, let me take a step back. So initially in 2011, 2013, when the master plan was updated, there were recommendations of mixed use, creation of mixed use zones along these commercial corridors. In 2015, when the ordinance was presented to the council specifically eliminated residential from the allowed uses owing to their concern about residential flat style apartments. And I mean, forget just residential, but they never even allowed mixed use, which is a combination of commercial and residential. So, I mean, I know Ms. Coffin is at a tough spot to defend whether it's consistent with the master plan. The applicant is seeking a use variance, which clearly means that it is not consistent with the master plan and the zone plan. In that instance, have you reviewed the proposed use and compared it with what is permitted to see if this use is better than the commercial use that is permitted by the zone? Because I heard you made a statement that the permitted uses are not particularly suited for this site, and I was a little lost on that.
No, I believe I said,
She didn't use the term not particularly suited.
I just need clarification.
I said it's not as well suited because of the impact it would have on the Foxborough community. This site is unique among the EDO zone in that it's got that shared access to an existing residential area.
And since we're talking about the impact, and I know one of Rakesh's comments was to compare the traffic impact with the commercial use. Have you looked at the fiscal impact, which is also a part of the community impact statement? Because I know there is a comment in the report that says that overall positive net fiscal impact by this project is 71,420. So I'm sure there was an analysis done in the past. Do you have any numbers for it?
I did not revise it because it's not information the board can base their decision on. The
Right.
fiscal impact
It's
is not.
just informative. I was just curious if you
decisive
have compared
information.
it.
No, I have not.
And Mr. Pape, I remember at the beginning of your your opening statements, one of your comments was this is an inherently beneficial use. And I believe you were saying in context with the affordable units that are created, not the overall project, correct?
The inherently beneficial qualification is that there is 18 affordable units, correct? Which elevates this to an inherently beneficial use.
I think I already talked about the densities. I talked about the master plan. I think I'm good, unless, Chris, you have any questions.
Mr. Chairman? Just a few comments, and Ms. Coffin, I'll circle back to you in a second. But Mr. Pape, maybe I didn't hear that comment at the first meeting, or maybe someone else in my office was here. I mean, I don't know that it's an inherently beneficial use because there's an affordable component to it. If it was 100% affordable housing component, then I think it qualifies as an inherently beneficial use. But just, we don't have to go back and forth on that, but I don't know that that's accurate.
Not my understanding, nor is it my opinion, but you guide the board.
Okay. And I was, Coffin, you made, comments about the positive and negative criteria. I just want to give you an opportunity to kind of expand upon what I think your testimony was, is that although obviously you're here for a D variance, and part of the proofs is that the site is well suited for this type of use, right? You indicated, I think earlier, that although it is a commercial use, and there certainly could be a commercial permitted use going there, that the residential use, the property is well suited for residential use because of the tangential or the other associated impacts with the site, right, in the neighborhood?
That's part of it. It's also its proximity to transit corridors.
Okay. So in terms of like the overall impact to the surrounding neighborhood, it's your testimony, as I understand it, that the residential use would have a lower impact on the surrounding area as opposed to a permitted commercial use?
Yes.
Can you expand upon that as to why? I mean,
Well, we heard traffic testimony that the traffic generation for this would be less than half of the permitted use.
okay.
It will also have less noise. If there's a restaurant going in on this site, there would be odors that would not be associated with this sort of development.
Okay. And the site itself could handle the impact or the density of the proposed residential use in your
Absolutely.
professional opinion?
Yes.
I have any other questions?
I just have one more question. Ms. Coffin, typically when I'm testifying for a use variance, I also look at the existing land use patterns. Do you want to comment or make a statement about the neighboring land use patterns and consistency when you're talking about site suitability?
Well,
That would be helpful.
The only developed adjacent property is residential. There are other apartments in the wider area. There's Pine Gate, which is accessed off Route 18 southbound. We've got Avalon Bay on the other side of the hospital. We've got Bridge 99. So it does fit within the fabric of this part of Old Bridge.
You wanted to respond?
I just wanted to, when we were before the Old Bridge Township Planning Board with this property, and we're presenting a convenience store and a gas station and a retail building, room was filled with people who found that to be objectionable. It is what the zone permits. It expressly includes all of those. And the voices of the neighbors were gasoline, smells, hours of operation, tractor-trailer truck movements, the attractive nuisance, the sounds and smells that are associated with a retail operation. These were the statements made on the record as to why the residential neighbors didn't want this. In comparison to that, and unsolicited by the applicant, you had the Board of Trustees indicate that they are philosophically comfortable with the application that's being presented to the board. I think that speaks volumes. The residents aren't experts in planning or the master plan, but the residents are, they are experts in what they want to see next door. Probably would like it to be nothing forever. That's not an option. I thought it's important to point out that those statements came from the public when we were in front of the board in this room, bringing an EDO compliant project.
Fire Marshal, you had nothing?
No, I have nothing, thank you.
Go to board members on my left. Roseanne? You made a comment about, I don't have the community impact statement. If someone has it, I'd like to refer to it, about 2.1% addition to the school.
Yes.
What does that mean in a number?
That was the calculation that was revised by the planner who had prepared the
There
community.
was a number in the CPI.
Yeah, that's the increase that those
13
18.
or something? What was it?
Yeah, that those 18.
18? Oh, you have
The
it?
original was 13, and then when Ms. Coffin went and revisited it, it was slightly higher. So it's 18 school kids and Ms. Coffin, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to remember off memory. 253 some.
243.
43
was the revised number.
residents.
These are estimates, these are not.
Okay, yeah, because the CPI
a
said it
crystal
was
ball.
18, and that's based on 0.15, and you're saying 2.1. Or are you saying
Maybe
0.21?
maybe I have a
Because
typo.
2.1 sounds like a lot to me.
No. 0.21.
0.21, okay, that sounds a little bit better. Okay, and I want everybody to know, and there was some writing in there that may allude to the fact that there was 2 prior applications before the board, not this board. So that was the planning board, and for those who here in the audience and those watching, the planning board normally would administrate things that are permissible. The zoning board normally deals with things that are not permissible. That's why they're here seeking a use variance, because this use is not allowed in the zone without permission. So that brings us to the situation of, I'm confused why there was no allowance for the permissible use when it came before the board, became before the planning board on 2 occasions. And why you would bring now a use that seems like a bridge too far. I don't see why the board should grant a variance here to put in housing when it's perfectly okay for the owner to put in whatever he needs to do commercially. So you're almost asking us here to justify this and change the zone plan by a variance, and I don't think that's proper for the board to do, but I may be wrong. That would be my personal opinion. I do want to go to a public portion this evening. We might generate some more comments from the public. But if there's any response, please feel free to do so now, or you can do so later.
I'll reserve.
Thank you, Mr. Pape. And I'm going to go to a public portion, unless you have anything else right now, Ms. Coffin? Okay. All right, this is matter 52-2021 ZRD Management, located Route 18 in Foxborough Drive, multifamily residential community. Obviously, those here in the courtroom, some of you may want to have comments. I would ask you, please, speak into the, he'll assist you on that. You have to be sworn in, first of all, by the board attorney. You will be under oath when you testify. Please don't be repetitive, but the board will listen to certainly what your commentary is. I have a list of 9 people that I know testified at the last one, and in brief, I kind of have hand notes of what their commentary was. So, ma'am, board attorney will swear you in, please.
Hi, ma'am. Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to testify the truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
Can we have your name, ma'am?
Brenda Gianchetti,
Can you spell your last name, ma'am?
Gianchetti.
Thank you.
And it was Brenda? Okay, ma'am.
And do you live in close proximity?
I live at 3 Stone Ridge Road.
Thank you.
And what would you like to tell the board, or do you have questions for any of the testimony?
We'll see where it goes.
Okay.
I'm here to speak against any exit or entrance onto Foxborough Drive. I feel there's been variables that have not been addressed and misrepresented the impact. Foxborough Drive is in between 2 lights. So you're driving at a reasonable highway speed, keeping up with the flow of traffic, and you're entering the development upwards of 40 miles an hour on a blind curve. It's blind to both the person driving into the development and anybody pulling out of this new complex. I've heard comparisons of this exit to the Marlborough Road Walmart exit. The exit on Marlborough Road by Walmart has no houses or people until you turn onto Pleasant Valley Road, and even then, it's not the density of Foxborough Village. Amboy Road also doesn't have highway driving speed access or blind turns that Foxborough Drive does. This intersection is more akin to Texas Road and Route 9, and we all see how dangerous that has become. There'll be too much going on. You're exiting Route 18 on a blind curve. Cars are coming across Route 18 on Marlborough Road. Cars are exiting this new complex and will be going into it from Stone Ridge Road. If you build it, tenants are going to use it. It's not just trucks that are the issue. Who's going to abide by a sign and go a longer way around Route 18 to Ferry to 9 when there's a provided path? If you build an exit on Foxborough Drive, there are tenants with cars. 120 units of cars with an estimated 200 some odd parking spots. It's not just box trucks who already drive over the medians and are going to use it as an easier way to get to and from Route 9. There's plenty of reasons someone would want to avoid Route 18 and go through Foxborough to Route 9, even though there are stop signs. Despite any unenforceable signage, the sign is going to do nothing. Not only is it the entrance or exit dangerous, the streets are too narrow for increased traffic. Too many streets have places where it's dicey to have 2 cars pass each other, and it's narrow curves. There's also an issue with overflow and potential overnight parking that's very hard to enforce restrictions. Not having an exit on Foxborough Drive more separates the 2 developments and will lead to better relations between the 2. It's not safe to have an exit on Foxborough Drive. At the last meeting, you were asked to take the time to make that drive. Did any of you have the opportunity to do that? And what were your thoughts?
Please, nothing from the audience. I'll ask her to
What do you
speak
mean
up.
by it won't work?
It won't work. It'll be too congested, and the turn to come out, you're exactly right. People are going to cut through Foxborough to get on to Ferry Road when there's congestion there. It's just going to happen. That's the way people are.
And coming in on 18,
You fear for your life.
yeah.
Hold on, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
So I'm not necessarily against doing something there, but the impact to the development from the Foxborough Drive exit has not been appropriately acknowledged.
May I ask?
Anything else you want to respond?
I just wanted to ask a question. Is your objection the driveway on Foxborough? Is that the objection?
My objection is an entrance on Foxborough Drive.
Is there any objection to this being an apartment community if there were no driveway access to Foxborough Drive?
I would prefer nothing, but given the choice, yes, it would be fine.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Was there anybody else who want to be? Okay, sir.
My name's William A. Miller. I'm the attorney that represents Foxborough Village Homeowners Association. And I'll raise my hand.
Thank you, sir. Do you swear or affirm to testify truthfully?
Yes.
Can we have your name just one more time, sir?
William A. Miller.
Thank you, sir.
Need to spell that?
I have it from the last time.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to point out that I was going to ask about, I'm sorry, I was going to ask about the access on Foxborough Drive, if the curvature could be, the angle could be changed, but given the fact that the unit owners on Stone Ridge are very adamantly against any traffic there, I want to point out to the board that this is not only a homeowners association, but it is a townhouse association. And immediately past Stone Ridge are a number of the townhouse roads which are owned by the association. The township does not own those roads. And so that has been always a source of contention, that people will attempt to park on townhouse roads, and there's really no enforcement by the local police authority on that. And then also, I know that there are other unit owners here, so I don't represent the individual unit owners, and I want them to testify about the water table issues that they've had. My understanding is that some pumps are going 24 hours a day on all of the properties in Stone Ridge. And then I believe that was it. I'll defer now to the rest of the unit owners, because I just wanted to point out that the Townhouse Association is intertwined with the Homeowners Association, and they're immediately adjacent to this project as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. You did make similar comments last time. I noted that you said property contains an HOA as well as a home, as well as and that you discussed it with the citizens. The primary concern is the turn onto Foxborough and the high water table and sump pumps. So,
Good evening.
go ahead, sir. Road attorney will swear you in.
You can start, could you raise your right hand? You swear or affirm to testify truthfully?
Yes.
Can we have your name, sir?
Stephen Bachman.
Can you spell your last name, Mr. Bachman?
B as in boy, A-C-K-M-A-N.
Thank you.
Address.
Mr. Bachman,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Your address.
17 Stone Ridge Road.
Thank you, sir.
And I know you testified at the last hearing as well.
Yes.
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. I am most affected by this project.
Most what,
And,
sir?
Most affected
Oh.
by this project, or would be most affected by this project. I happen to be in favor of it, okay? And I know that Mr. Pape likes to hear that, and it's really for his ears. We don't want to consider a commercial use at that property. It's, everybody's talking about the traffic. Commercial use would just be impossible to deal with. I think it's something that we could live with. I think that they have gone out of their way to make certain concessions. However, there are always more. So I'm prepared to talk about those. The one of the simplest things, which I requested on several other hearings about this property, is a fence. Every other property, whether it's the one on Old Amboy Road or Avalon, Avalon, there's a fence that not only does it provide safety from people running through backyards, but it provides a barrier so when headlights are going through when they're coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning, headlights are not being shined through our backyards. I think it's a simple request. I can't understand. I believe that they would do it, okay? I'd be very surprised if they're not willing to do that.
Isn't there a fence on there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, so that addresses that. I'm sorry.
There's no problem with putting a fence.
That's really cut and dry. And the fencing that was used in other projects are perfectly fine. They're 6-foot solid fences. They're actually up with the landscaping. The top of them are about 7 feet, and that is perfectly acceptable. They're hard to climb. They prevent lighting from going through the properties. The other thing is, let's get back to this thing with Foxborough Drive. I don't understand why, unless it's a fire issue, why does there have to be any access onto Foxborough Drive? I mean, it's clearly easily in and out on 18. I mean, all that's doing is creating a potential for a problem. Another thing that could, if there has to be for other reasons, has to have some type of access from Foxborough Drive. Why isn't the structure of the actual apron curved so you physically can't make that turn? Because right now there are lost tractor trailers that come in. They go to the end of Foxborough Drive on Stone Ridge, and they spend a half hour negotiating how to make it back out of there. Okay, and they are always going over the median. A sign, we all know, we got to deal with reality, not pie in the sky stuff. A perfect example is Walmart. Curbing was put in there, which could easily be driven over, not to make a left turn out of Walmart. There's a sign there. If the police department wanted to make up for all the tax revenue, they could sit there in one day and write as many tickets as they want. Nobody's going to obey a sign. It's got to be some type of a more physical barrier. And the other thing is the overflow for parking. Okay, I realize that there are 230 or 231 parking spaces for 120 units. You have a couple of parties. Where are they going to park? They are tight streets. If you have parking, if you have people parking on both sides of Stone Ridge Road, it's really tough to navigate a truck, a fire truck, or any other large vehicle down the street. And especially when they get to the end of Stone Ridge and there's a cul-de-sac. Okay, if there are cars lined up around there, I don't think a fire truck could make it. And that hasn't been a problem for 35 years, but you add more volume somewhere. I don't have the answer, to be honest with you, but somewhere along the line that entrance on Foxborough has to be dealt with. The other thing is, which I left the real problem for last, is the water issue. Everybody on Stone Ridge Road has serious issues with water. I'm not talking about runoff, I'm talking about groundwater. And we have all spent thousands and thousands of dollars to have regrading done over the years. I'm an original owner, I'm there for 35 years. We finally have it under control. The property that these folks are planning on building this thing has been cleared several times over the years. Every time the property is cleared, the water level in our backyards and the sump pumps keep running. I can't even describe how often or how big of a difference it makes. As soon as the vegetation grows back like it is now, it's under control. Now the concern is when you put a building in a pot of water, groundwater, the water has to go somewhere. And all these things of controlling the runoff, that's all well and good. I'm sure that the town is going to, through their inspections, are going to make sure that the runoff is properly handled. I'm not worried about that. But what I am worried about is the change in the groundwater. And it won't take a lot to make a big difference to houses on Stone Ridge. And I'm not qualified to give an answer, but I have had several years in the construction business where slurry walls were put in to control stuff like this, and that might be something that needs to be considered. And it just can't be overstated what the water problem is on Stone Ridge Road. I invite anybody to come over to any one of the houses to see what the water situation is. And as I said before, don't want to be too repetitive, we really want this project to go forward. We think it's in the best interest of the town to have this as opposed to any kind of type of commercial entity there. It would be great. Houses are across the street from me. They might as well be in the back of me. I have no problem with that, and I think I could speak for everybody on Stone Ridge Road. As a matter of fact, that's why there's nobody else here except for me. And as they say, and that's all I have to say about that. Just let me just check my notes here. I think we're good. All the other questions I had already been answered, and it was very nice to hear positive comments about that. We don't need to reiterate that.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Beckman.
for the time. Have a good night.
My,
Board takes note of your comments.
and my response to Mr. Bachman, it was nice that he took the time to make those statements, and I do appreciate, on behalf of our client, the support for the use. I don't want to have fast answers to those questions, but we will have better answers to those questions. Clearly, we're not going to conclude this evening with a 5-member board. So we'll, the concern over groundwater, and the concern with regard to that driveway, the fence was an easy one to say yes. The driveway will have better answers when we are back.
Thank you. Anyone else on this matter want to be heard, please raise your hand or come forward. None? Okay. I'll close the public portion. For those of you, I saw you kind of trying to listen to what Mr. Pape was talking about. What he's inferring is that he's not going to call for a vote tonight on this matter because there are only 5 board members here. And in order to get an affirmative vote, you would need all 5. You need a supermajority on a use variance, so it would be a total of 5. So he's obviously not going to roll the dice on 5 people. He'll probably wait until we have 7, and that would be in his better odds. So what he's saying is there's going to be a continuance. He's going to examine some of the issues with his client, and I'm sure his professionals. There will be another hearing here. So I'm assuming he's going to he's indicated that he probably wants to give an answer to some of the comments he's heard here tonight.
And answers from the board, from the applicant's professionals are better than one that's just come from shooting it from the hip from the attorney. We would like to carry this application. There's a little bit of work that needs to be done. I personally have a conflict with your December 15th meeting, so what is the next opportunity? I envision that when we return, we're going to be brief.
Right, you're going to make some final comments. You'll probably ask the board to make theirs, and then we'll call for a vote.
And we'll distribute, as we did distribute the transcripts for the September 15th meeting for all board members, we'll do the same with this so that anyone who's not here not only has the opportunity to watch the videos, but can read the script if they wish to.
And I would encourage the board members to refresh. I read it today. It's 165 pages, in case anybody's counting.
I read it too.
To reread that, and as well as the next transcript. It is important. There is a lot of time and effort, and with effort goes, their money goes with effort. So there is an investment here from the applicant. So please take the time to do so. And if you haven't visited the site, please go and visit the site.
So, Mr. Pape, January 5th, is that a good date or not?
It's a reorganization.
It's a reorganization.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it empty?
I don't know that.
We don't know that yet. Maybe not, but it's a reorg. The next would be February, because I don't want to schedule it on a C night. The next would be February 2nd.
It's Groundhog Day. What could go wrong?
30 seconds, just.
Yes, by all means.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. Mr. Pape? Mr. Pape, the wink, wink, nod, nod is we would prefer you on the February date, not the January date.
Well, we have the same opinion.
Okay, that's perfect. Only because of the reorganization night, and I think that it might be too complicated, and if there's a change in any of the people on the board, you wouldn't want to have to go through all that over again, so.
I try to be the hero. You beat me every time.
So, so the plan is February 2, 2023 at 7:30. You will get copies of the transcripts. All the board members that are here that night will read and be able to sign a certification, thinking that that will be the last
So
night.
to the public, they're being told this is carried without notice. I'm not sending them transcripts.
No.
I'm sending.
Right, but I'm saying,
While you're walking out, you testified, I want you to know that the next meeting is February
February
the 2nd, 7:30 PM. That would be here in the courtroom.
and this is the only notice that you're going to receive.
You're not going to see that unless you check the website, but it is going to be scheduled February 2nd, 7:30 PM.
But, and Mr. Pape, you'll get the transcripts in on time, so everyone will be prepared to sign the certifications, so they're ready to go.
By the end of the year, yeah.
Very good.
All right, Mr. Pape, thank you and all your
No,
professionals
thank you.
for their time this evening and your presentation. I wish everyone happy holidays as we close out the year, and a safe New Year to all. We'll see you in '23.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Yes, there will be. Oh, absolutely. If you don't have, not with this matter, though. No. Yeah, we have general public comments. That'll be next. I just want to give them a chance to clear. No, you were the first one here. You'll probably be the last one to leave, right? Good night. We're off the record.
Celebrating their 70th year.
Okay, now my mic is live as well. As soon as the others have a chance to gather their things and leave, there is one item left on our agenda, and that is public comments. And there is one person here who has comments, so we will ask him in a few moments to come up and address the board. Okay. Sir, why don't you come up? You have a general comment, so you're not testifying as to this application, right? There's no need to at least one.
That's correct. All we need is just your name and your address.
Kevin Ahern, 15 Fernwood Place, Old Bridge, Ahearn. I'm here regarding a matter that was before this board back in 2020 of Metro Storage. I see Ms. Swamp has left, I guess, but I was hoping to
She'll be back.
Okay. I was hoping to catch this item to your attention before the compliance is completed, because there are some issues that are still outstanding from the judge's order, which includes Mr. Lavallo's report and the Environmental Resources Inc. So I have a little thing to keep me on track here, because I get to wander.
Let me just say one thing. Mr. Dasty, this is in reference to, what's the name of the?
If I recall.
Warehouse,
Metro
storage.
Storage.
Metro Storage.
Right.
And that matter.
Yeah, the matter's been concluded. It was a court remand. The board adopted a resolution memorializing the judge's decision earlier in the year. Your comments may be with regard to compliance review, but.
Yes,
But
and-
just, and you can certainly have your comments, or your comments, but I kind of want to
Yes.
lay the
and-
foundation a little bit. I mean.
Right, and I was going to recap a little bit that, you know, if it comes back to this board, and it could if they try to make changes beyond the variances that were approved by the judge.
Well, sure, but I mean, that's really
Yeah.
premature, right? Because if you're going to make comments as to what could happen, number one, we don't know what could happen. If you're making comments about a potential future application, that's about an applicant that's not sitting in the chair, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if you have a compliance review comments, certainly those are best directed to either the building department, the planning department. There's nothing, and again, your comments are your comments, it's public comment, but
Okay.
there's nothing up here that the board could say, hey, zoning officer, do this, hey, planning office, do that. So I just want to, I guess,
I have no problem with listening to your comments.
Thank you.
But, yeah, I don't know that, I am going to take advice from the attorney, other than, certainly you can put on, you can state what you want to state. There's no record other than the record of TV.
Sure.
So go ahead, sir.
So the variances were not approved by this board. A judge who doesn't live here and is from a different area and probably has never been in Old Bridge decided to do this. I have reached out to Metro Storage directly saying, hey, these are our concerns. I was hoping that they would react positively. I've reviewed the plans of September 15th, 2022, and they haven't addressed anything, which is our concerns of trees, fences, security, and water, same as the last guys. It's a three-story building. It's going to be 80 feet from our property line. If it was in an EDO 3, it'd be 100 feet, but it's in this one, and that's not a matter that's in, but just to set the tone for the compliance review, which, unfortunately, well, yeah, I guess, okay, you'll be in that too, right? So I met with Mr. Lavallo on November 19th at the Shade Tree Commission, and he did confirm that his report of February 2020, February 5th of 2020, still applies and has not been addressed by Metro Storage. Metro Freight was one of my old customers. Anyway, all the items I'm going to bring up have been covered by the resolution and the judge's order, or by current township codes that are in effect, and would fall under the court's reasonable and conditions as the board may deem appropriate. The focus is trees, fences, and runoff. In the Superior Court ruling, the judge twice notes triple rows of evergreens in addition to the existing trees in the buffer between the project and the residential homes. That's my property, that 50-foot buffer. And it's in Mr. Dassey's exhibit, page 32 and 37. Review of the tree removal plan, C12. I get 4 trees on my property line left. 30 are gone. In that 50-foot buffer, if the judge's order was correct or was followed, it'd be 87 more trees, additional trees for all 4 neighbors, 4 of us that line this property who are directly impacted by the demolition of 278 trees. There she is. So really what we're asking for is as many trees as Mr. Lavallo can get Metro Storage to put in there. And
Mr. Swan?
Mr. Wan has, I've been sending emails, so she probably knows a little bit of what I'm been sending. We're
One
looking
thing I
for
would
more.
say, Mr. Ahern, this board has no jurisdiction
I know,
over
I need it.
what happens with the building department, the inspections, or with anything that has happened here is over and done with.
I understand.
We are citizens of the community just like yourself. We're volunteer members that come and do this. The township professionals would be the people, and I guess perhaps the building department, maybe council. I really don't know how to direct you, other than I can tell you that no one here has the power to do anything about what the judge's ruling was.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Ahern, you alluded to the fact that you've been, emailed Ms. Sawant, and I'm sure you did.
I think you've been in copy also.
Actually,
well-
Chris, you and I spoke about it. I
Yeah.
sent it to you. I sent you the email as well. But Mr. Ahern, to be honest, and I missed what you said before. I'm sorry, but no, I've read your emails. So all I can say is the plans were just submitted. We haven't started reviewing them. We are overwhelmed with work.
I can imagine, yes.
We have at least 2 meetings every week. So I haven't reviewed it. I have your comments. When we start taking a closer look, we will look at it. But I had reached out to Chris saying that I have never come across a resident wanting to review it when the staff, professional staff, is reviewing compliance plans, because generally public participation is before the board takes a vote on it. So this is an unusual situation where I seeked guidance from Mr. Dasty on it, and I had told you whatever was submitted, you can always make an OPRA request, which I believe you did, and Natalie assisted you in that. But that's the only thing we can do at this point.
You said,
I'm sorry, sir. Just one moment. I think, I think everyone knows how overworked Vina is, and I think it's time for a raise, Vina. But I think you need to give her office time to review the plans to see what is missing or isn't missing or has to be added. And certainly after she reviews it, I'm sure she'll let you know what she thinks. But I think we just need to give it a little bit of time, because I don't think that it's even been reviewed or approved or denied yet. You're ahead of the ball, so if you want a job in Vina's office, she needs more help, obviously. But I think you just need to give that office a little bit more time.
And Mr. Ahern, when there was no submission, I have promptly responded to your emails saying that I'm still waiting. I haven't received anything. When it was submitted, I did inform you that it was submitted. However, I haven't even opened the package.
okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that the things that the judge had put in his orders, which were Gary's.
Rest assured that Vina's office and through my assistance, we're going to compare what the judge ordered to what is ultimately submitted, and we're going to compare it and make sure that everything's in there. Sure.
Okay. I just had one question. When you said when you do complete it, then it will go to a board for vote. This board?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No,
That's
what I
confused.
meant is the public participation comes prior to the board taking a vote. Once the vote is taken, one of the condition is that the applicant will address any of the comments made by the professionals and the conditions that are included in the resolution of approval. So the next part is the applicant has time to address those comments and come in with a submission. We as professionals review those compliance plans, but at that point, we don't come back to the board.
Right. That's why I was confused when you said it would go to the board. This board
she was-
rejected it.
No,
4-3.
She was analogizing the process that usually the public comes up and
Right.
says, I don't want that here, which occurred in this case. It doesn't usually happen. Have you received the plans yet? Have you reviewed it? So she was giving an analogy as to.
Okay. That's
Right. So there will be no hearing on the compliance reviews. It's just that you have to trust the professionals and,
We know you're very busy, and I just want to make sure that the residents and the business that's adjourning to this has input, or at least you are aware of our concerns, as Metro Storage is aware of our concerns. I've sent the same things to him, Bob Hyman, and nothing has been addressed.
Is it John Visascala, if I'm not mistaken?
Just 1 second. I mean, Mr. Ahern, to be fair, I mean, the public's concerns are always taken into account because they're memorialized in a resolution that a judge has, ordered in the court that was adopted by resolution. So Mrs. Sawant's office, the Planning and Zoning Office are going to see what the findings of fact were, what the requirements were, and when the plans come in, they're going to compare it to the judge's decision and the minutes of the meeting and make sure that what is supposed to be there or not be there is there.
Yeah, I can, just to add on to what Mr. Dasty said, my office, actually, we're the consulting engineers actually for the township, so I'm not as overworked as Vina, evidently. So, but we we actually do the conformance review along with Vina. Vina handles the planning portion. We do the other 80% of the comments. She has the tough comments. I have the easy ones that are check-off stuff. So what we do as part of the compliance review, it's like a checklist. We'll take the review letters from all of the professionals. We'll take the resolution of approval. In this case, it's the court order.
Right.
And we actually go through and check off every single thing, and we make sure that every comment, everything that's required is actually done, and the plans are, and it's an iterative process, just so you know. Very rarely do we get a set of plans and I just say, yeah, everything's done. It's usually, this is done, but it's not done the way I want it. This is done, it's not done the way the board had said it. So it's a process that usually takes months, and in some cases, a few years to actually get people to, to comply. So rest assured that it's not something that just gets, because somebody's overworked, that it's getting overlooked. The same thing goes with the fire marshal's comments as well. We make sure that he actually reviews it and gives us a letter saying that he's okay with it. So nothing gets signed off until everyone sends me a letter and we look at it and everything's done.
And
I'm
also
sorry to keep everybody here, and I just,
That's okay, you have a concern.
Mr.
We're
Ahern,
here for that, but.
Mr. Ahern, I just want to add on one more thing to what Mr. Darji said. The one additional thing which his office or me, one of us definitely does, is we go through the transcripts as well, because sometimes there would be a waiver here and there that is missed in the resolution or was not captured, but we ensure that even those waivers are addressed. So no matter how busy if we are, the minute we touch a project, we definitely do a thorough job. We don't want to slack on anything. So I have read the numerous emails you have sent. I have read all the emails that you have sent, even during the hearing process. So we will address them, but I'm not sure if there is any more public participation at this point. And that's why I had reached out to Mr. Dasty.
okay, I would just, make I kind of did a shortcut for a lot of the items that are I seem to think are outstanding, and it's the 6-foot berm. The township has a rule that from mini warehouses, the fence should be 6 feet, not 4 feet, that is being replaced. It can be decorative stone, concrete, and that's what I'm asking for, and that's what I've asked for.
Sure, and Mr. Ahern, again, we appreciate your comments, but you got to appreciate the fact that they haven't been reviewed yet. So
Okay,
I mean,
yeah, well, I didn't know that, though. No one's
no,
telling me
I was
anything,
aware of that. So I think you need to give time for the planning and zoning and the engineering office to review it. And like Vina said, I mean, this application predates me, but I understand it was 3 or 4 public hearings. There's probably 400 or 500 pages of transcripts to go through. So it's going to take time.
Okay,
It's going to take
well,
time. And it takes time because Vina's office and the engineering department's office, they do it right. And that's why we get 24-page review memos. I mean, they do a very thorough job, and in order to do that, you have to take your time. So,
Okay.
all right.
So there's 3 points. The berm, 6 feet or higher, according to Mr. Valvallo's February report, as far north as can be. The fence, 6 feet, and also the environmental resource. Is that your company or? Resolutions? Your recommendation or your request that Metro do a runoff survey of the existing of water coming off and post. Those are the 3 major ones. I've got a few other ones, but anyway. Thank you for your time. As I said to Vina, the other project, the 8 warehouses, the guy is doing 16-foot berms for people that are 600 feet from the warehouses. I'm 80 feet from the warehouse. So all I'm looking for is a berm, fence, trees. I love trees. I got bad lungs, and I need good air. And we got a golf course coming.
Yes, we do. I hope that you get in the new year what you are wishing for. Once again, I have no control over that, but I wish you the best, healthy, happy holidays, and hope things go your way.
Sorry to keep
moving
you
forward.
again.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahern. Any board members, any comments, final comments? Okay, one more meeting. The next one is virtual. It's on the 15th. That'll be it for the year. So while I see everybody in person, Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Healthy, happy New Year to all. Someone want to move for an adjournment? All in favor? All right, we stand adjourned.